The northern forest stretches from coastal Maine and Nova Scotia to the prairie edge in western Minnesota and Manitoba. It is the most intact temperate deciduous forest left in the world. There are 4 primary forest types within this incredibly important forest. The northern hardwood forest is the most extensive of the 4 and occupies the region's best soils. Species adapted to the northern hardwood forest produce deep shade in which only shade-tolerant seedlings can grow to maturity. Barring catastrophes such as fires or blowdown, the forest canopy can maintain itself indefinitely. Sugar maple, red maple, and American beech tolerate more shade than other hardwoods and thrive here. Yellow birch and paper birch are also common. Striped maple does well in the shady understory, and the forest floor nourishes club moss, wood fern, and trilliums. Where the soils are rich, white ash, basswood, elm, and hop hornbeam grow on humus that has high pH and nutrient levels. In this film, we use brilliant fall colors to differentiate the primary forest. Imagine hardwoods being the center of a sandwich. Lowland conifers are the bread below, and upland conifers the bread above. Of course, nature does not follow these rules exactly, and soil type, soil moisture, slopes, altitude, and temperature make drawing boundaries a futile exercise. Variation is rampant, as you will see in these videos, but that's what makes nature so interesting. Here we fly over the lowland conifers of the Chub River, starting at an elevation of about 2,000 feet, and then up the watershed to the Sawtooth Mountains you see in the distance at an elevation just under 4,000 feet. Notice the distinct separation between the lowland conifers on the moist flats and hardwoods above on slopes having better drainage and soils. Northern hardwoods dominate the slopes here in the Chub River drainage, up to about 3,000 feet elevation on east-facing slopes and 2,700 feet on north-facing slopes. But you will see some conifers mixed in with hardwoods depending on soil and moisture variables, especially on rocky outcrops and in pockets around streams and lakes, as you see here. As we climb higher, we see that the boundary between hardwoods and upland conifers is highly variable, and we still see a few maples and many paper birch and aspen scattered within the conifers. Higher up, we see lines of dead trees in what is called a fir wave, where the tallest and oldest trees take the brunt of ice and windstorms before finally dying off. A similar effect can happen at the edge of an old fire or blowdown, where the remaining trees become a windbreak for those behind. Crossing over the first high ridge, we see only scattered paper birch and aspen in the upland conifer forest, dominated by red spruce and balsam fir. Flying over the Gothics and Saddleback Mountain early in the morning with a turn to the southwest, we see the top of Basin Mountain, Mount Haystack, and Mount Marcy, the highest point in New York State at 5,344 feet. 11 Adirondack peaks, including these 3, have about 70 acres of fragile tundra plant communities, normally found many hundreds of miles to the north in Labrador and Quebec. The alpine zone is characterized by this tundra, and the subalpine zone just below is populated with Krummholz, a German word meaning twisted wood, as you will see in the next clips. We see Krummholz here on Whiteface Mountain, balsam fir living in a brutal environment, often with drought, freezing temperatures, long periods covered in ice and snow, and very little nutrients from soil. Note the light-colored fir waves in the distance. These balsam firs of the Upland Conifer forest have a view overlooking Lake Placid, site of the 1932 and 1980 Winter Olympics. We fly close to an interesting transition zone in the Mackenzie Mountains, between the northern hardwood zone on the left and upland conifers on the right, illustrating just how variable and arbitrary a boundary between them can be. The northwestern portion of the Adirondack Park has large expanses of glacial outwash flats, created as the glaciers receded some 11,000 years ago. These outwash soils do not have sufficient nutrients for northern hardwoods generally, but support a population of red spruce and balsam fir, with scattered patches of white pine and paper birch. Wildfire was once common here, sweeping through the drought-prone barrens and spruce flats, killing most young hardwoods. Here is a typical spruce flat understory filmed on the ground. The forest floor is covered by a deep mat of spruce and fir needles, and devoid of most vegetation except for pockets of sphagnum and other mosses, with a few scattered seedlings of shade-tolerant tree species. A flight over these three lakes shows how mixed the major forest types can become. Close to the water we have conifers, including hemlocks, cedar, larch, firs, and spruce. Hardwoods are close behind these conifers on rising terrain, but notice conifers are plentiful within hardwoods on these slopes as well. The hardwoods conifer mix gradually gives way to upland conifers higher up on Whiteface Mountain, rising to almost 5,000 feet. White pine is easily identified because it rises well above the adjacent canopy. Rocky hilltops and steep south-facing slopes have a dominant mix of conifers and paper birch. Dead trees are perhaps the result of an ice storm, pathogens, or old age. We simply don't know. Here a balsam fir growing in the understory of a mature, mostly maple hardwood canopy. Typically, deeper shade would keep these firs from growing here, but enough light gets through this canopy, allowing them to grow. While we try to categorize forest types, it is clear that our effort is a generalization that allows us to lump things together, but nature is not so neat.